This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to Save a Pooch on Pet Life Radio. Thank you for listening in today. I am your host, Beverly Isla. Today's episode features ElderDog Canada, a national charity dedicated to aging people and aging dogs. Losing a pet dog can be one of the most difficult things to experience. And obviously because of their shorter lifespan than humans, that is often the case. However, it can go the other way around. The dog may also lose their human through illness or death, and their lives drastically change to a whole new, different environment. And unfortunately, it is likely a shelter if family members are unable to care for the dog. So organizations like ElderDog not only have a mission of rehoming dogs in these cases, but they also support elders in taking care of their dogs so they are not put in a position to let their dog go because they are physically unable to take care of them. So our guest for this episode is Dr. Ardra Cole, Executive Director of ElderDog Canada. When we get back from these messages, we will hear from Dr. Ardra Cole.
How many of you have pets? My hand's raised. Now think about how lucky you are to have such a sweet little pet in your life, and that pet is lucky to have you too. But unfortunately, there are countless pets out there that don't have a home to call their own. However, Bob's from Skechers is trying to change that. So we developed Bob's for dogs and cats to help pets in need. With every purchase of adorable Bob's footwear or fun, stylish apparel, or even the cutest Bob's pet accessories, Skechers makes a donation to Petco Love to help save shelter pets. And with your help, we've already saved the lives of over 1 million pets and raised over $7 million. So while you're getting style and comfort with features like Skechers' famous memory foam cushioning, you're also helping to save an adorable pet in need and helping another lucky owner be connected with a future best friend and companion, because happiness is having a loving pet by your side. Find Bob's at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, select Petco locations, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Save a Pooch. We are talking with Executive Director of ElderDog Canada, Dr. Ardra Cole. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I read an article about the organization and thought, wow, you guys are really contributing in multiple ways. And one angle is helping elders keep their companionship with their dog, which prevents those dogs from being given up and ending up in shelters. And another angle is, should their human pass, the organization facilitates rehoming, which also prevents the dog from going to a shelter. So to me, it's a win-win. And you have quite the background in the well-being of both aging humans and aging canines. So maybe you can tell us about a few of your key research findings.
Yeah, thanks, Beverly. I'm really delighted to be here today. I really appreciate the invitation. I created ElderDog in part as a response to my research into caregiving for loved ones with dementia. And in that research, it became quite clear that the family dog had an important role to play in the well-being of both ill seniors and the family members who were caring for them. And I mean, at that same time, I was, involved in animal-assisted therapy and doing a variety of dog-related things that really raised my awareness of the importance of attending to the relationship between older adults and their dogs. And so I really started to, as I was working on developing ElderDog, I started to do research in that area. And of course, there's a large body of research that primarily focuses on the benefits to humans of having dogs. And I thought, well, that's all true. There's psychological, emotional benefits, physiological benefits, social benefits, and I can't argue with any of that. But what I was hearing from the people I was speaking with through ElderDog and outside of ElderDog was that it was really more not about benefits as much as the relationship that was so important. And
Right.
so the more I started to explore this through research, my own research into this issue, the better I was able to understand how essential that relationship really is and how deep the attachment is for people and dogs, and how people, the older people, so my research is with older adults, how they see that relationship as probably one of the most important connections in their lives. So many of these older adults are living alone. Perhaps they've lost a partner or spouse, and their dog is their one and only 24/7 companion. And that relationship is absolutely vital to their health and well-being. And it's really not about benefits. They're there, but they talk about the importance of the companionship, of the deep love and attachment they have for their companion dog, and how important it is for them to care for their dog and also to have that companionship, and how the responsibility of caring for a dog is part of the joy that they experience and part of their well-being, not in terms of a benefit, but in terms of, it really reminded me of how we might think about other relationships in our lives where, part of that is the joy that we experience through that relationship. And when the older adults were talking about their dog and their relationship, it was very much akin to any other kind of relationship that they might have, although this one really rose to the top in terms of their importance.
Absolutely. I mean, it's countless. How many countless times have we seen people who claim they don't like dogs and then they get a dog and then all of a sudden they're a different person? So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The research that you were compiling, was it mainly in a certain region?
Well, the original research that kind of kickstarted ElderDog was across Canada, where we talked with people all across the country about their experiences of caregiving. And, so these stories would come forward in different contexts and different places across the country. I live in Nova Scotia, and that's where the headquarters of, or the national office of ElderDog is. And I work at Mount St. Vincent University. So my research is primarily located now in Nova Scotia. And so the in-depth work that I do, the kind of research that I do, is located, primarily in Nova Scotia.
Gotcha. And I noticed you have a ton of locations across Canada. So that's awesome that you're carrying all that area. Now, what are the programs you offer? Talk to us about that, because I find that interesting, because that's where the multi-angle is where I saw that.
Yeah, and you covered some of those very nicely in your introduction. So rehoming is certainly an important part of ElderDog, and we find loving new homes for older dogs who lose usually their senior companions, human companions, and that could be due to the death of their human companion or illness, as you mentioned. Most often, though, it's because their human has to move to a residential facility where dogs are not allowed. And that is a devastating experience. And it really is akin to death for both, because they're losing everything. And for the human, they're moving probably because they've lost a partner or spouse. They've had to downsize for financial reasons. So they've lost their family home and many of their possessions because they have to cull as they move into a smaller residential situation. And then they have to lose the most important companion that they have left. And so it's a very difficult period that the humans go through. And of course, for some of these dogs, they've been, with their human and in that family and family home and routine for 10, 12, some 15 years. And so that's a big adjustment. So we do spend a lot of time finding exactly the right home for these older dogs. A large part of what we do at an elder dog is supporting older adults who are living at home with a dog and need just a little bit of extra help caring for their dog. Maybe they don't have, the same mobility they once had, and the dog is not getting the exercise they need. And so we help with that. Maybe the person is not driving any longer, and so they need to get, the dog to maybe a grooming appointment or a vet appointment. Maybe, there's something preventing them from administering, some medication or cleaning ears or eyes or, grooming or bathing, anything that relates to the basic daily care of their dog that they just need a little bit of extra help with, we help. And also we provide foster care in the case of a medical emergency, so that they're not losing their companion animal, and that really helps in their recovery as well. So,
Right.
We really focus on trying to keep them together and keep that relationship well and alive as long as possible. Some people inquire of elder dog about what might happen if something happens to them. In other words, they have a dog and they're worried about their dog, or maybe they would like to have a dog but are hesitant because they worry about what might happen to that dog if something happens to them. So we have a long-term care program that people can register in. And what that provides is tremendous peace of mind, so that if they're registered in our long-term care program, Elder Dog makes a commitment to care for that dog in perpetuity if anything happens to the human. And we do a lot of education and outreach about the human-animal bond, and certainly the importance of that for older adults, because it becomes increasingly important the older people get. And then research is an important part of what we do as well. So we have, those, I guess, 4 or 5 programs that really make up the heart of Elder Dog.
Yeah, you guys are covering a lot. And I noticed that with the dogs that you guys take care of, there is an age requirement. I'm just wondering why. Do the dogs have to be of a certain age?
Primarily, so when you mentioned at the beginning, dogs going to shelters, if older dogs do go to a shelter, it's not a really good environment for them. Right? Yeah. The environment itself is not conducive to older dogs. And when somebody wants to adopt a dog, they don't line up looking for an old dog. So we really wanted to provide, a space and a context that really focuses on rehoming of older dogs.
Right.
Now, we do occasionally rehome a younger dog. We have this kind of thing where we say there has to be an elder in the equation. Either it's a younger person who, for whatever reason, has to give up her or his older dog, or the person is older and may very well have a younger dog. But for the most part, the older people have older dogs, and that's where most of our attention is. It's interesting because we specialize in this area. We do have waiting lists of people wanting to adopt an older dog.
Oh, I can imagine, because it would be hard for them. They would have the hardest time being adopted out. So yeah, I really appreciate that people are taking that into consideration. But we're just going to have a quick break. And when we get back, we'll continue talking with Dr. Ardra Cole.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms, and our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, Stitcher, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Save a Pooch. We are talking with Dr. Ardra Cole, Executive Director of ElderDog Canada, a national charity dedicated to aging people and aging dogs. So going back to the elders that you're taking care of and the preparations that they should get into, it almost sounds like not like writing a will, the process, but what advice do you have for seniors and preparation? Because there can be tricky situations without it. Like, for example, some seniors who do have family may assume they'll take care of their dog. I personally know someone that kind of made this assumption, but their family member didn't want to take that on. Or maybe the senior may assume they'll still outlive their dog. Do you take part in education on that end?
Yes, exactly. We do. And it does happen time and again where, people do make that assumption. And, it's sad but true that often if the person passes away, the family will take the dog either to a shelter or take the dog to a vet to be euthanized because, as people would say, who would want an old dog, right?
Mm-hmm. That's sad. Okay.
Yeah. And very fortunately, we have such good relationships with veterinarians that we get many calls from veterinarians say, look, somebody just brought this older dog in and this dog is perfectly healthy or, has a few issues that are very treatable. Can you help? And of course, yes, absolutely, we can. So we do a lot of education. And in our dog care support program, we talk with people about, planning for the future. And of course, a lot of the people in our dog care support program would register in our long-term care so that they have that peace of mind that if something happens to them, then their dog is well cared for. And of course, at that point, they've already developed a close, trusting relationship with elder dogs. So, they know that their dog would be well cared for. And so we do try to help people plan for the future with their dog, for sure.
Amazing. And it's great that you guys have relationships with vets that do know about you so they can make that recommendation. That would help a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just so heartwarming when we know that, we've saved that life.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are many memorable cases the organization has seen. What are a couple that stand out to you?
Yeah, and speaking, and it just reminded me when we were talking earlier about the shelter situation. I remember early days, one of the very first calls we received was from an older person in her 90s who had just lost her dog. And she couldn't imagine going through life without a dog because she had spent her entire life with dogs and she wanted a dog to continue to grow old with. And of course, she had always had rescue dogs or dogs from shelters. And she thought she would continue to do that. But of course, she went to a local shelter and she was told that she was too old.
Oh.
And we hear that time and again. So we were able to introduce her to an older dog who she'd adopted. And they lived together for many years, actually, and the dog did pass away before, and she's still going strong. So, I think that's very memorable because we don't often think about that, kind of discriminatory practice that is out there for older people who want to adopt from a shelter or rescue. Another example that comes to mind, which was really is relatively recent. It was really one of those moments that kind of stop you in your tracks. We received a phone call from an older person who lived alone with her little dog, and her dog needed to be groomed, and she didn't have anyone to take her to the groomer, and she had no way of getting her there herself. And she lived in an area where we were just in the beginning stages of offering our services, but we didn't have a full complement there. And so the person on our toll-free line asked her, well, do you have any family who might be able to help you? And the person paused for a second, and her voice, the tone of her voice kind of indicated surprise. And she said, my dog is my only living relative.
Oh.
And I thought, right there captures the reason we exist.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And, you know, to have that level of attachment and I would say interdependence, really, of that relationship is just so poignant.
Yes.
And I think about that all the time. And so, you know, there are so many stories.
Oh, yeah, I could imagine.
Oh, my goodness, there are so many. Yeah.
Too many. And I love how you guys are filling a hole in the industry. And it actually makes me want to look at your website to see, like, oh, what are your volunteer opportunities that I can maybe...
Please do.
And speaking of, what are the options, since I have you on here?
Yeah.
Volunteers.
Yeah. So, I mean, volunteering in any of the programs that I mentioned, of course, most of the volunteers sign up because they want to walk dogs and help seniors keep their dogs. And that could, you know, people help out in a variety of ways, as I've mentioned. Of course, foster families are so important for what we do. And, you know, but also involvement kind of at the national level, because we are nationwide and we have 37 pods or chapters, we call them pods, PAWDS, across the country. And so coordinating and organizing all of that is, you know, at the national level is very challenging. So we always need a lot of help in that area, you know, outreach, social media, communications, anything really. We always say, you know, if you're interested in being part of ElderDog, bring your strengths and interests forward, and we'd love to involve you in any way that is of interest to you. I mean, because really inviting people to bring their strengths forward is I think a way to connect people with a really strong commitment to the organization.
Yes, you got that right. Well, thank you so much. And that brings us to the end. We are out of time. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your work. And thanks to our show producer, Mark Winter, for making this show possible. You can view ElderDog Canada's work on elderdog.ca, which will also be on the show notes page. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for a show, please email me at beverly@petliferadio.com. So until next time, spread animal compassion.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.